just to let you know, everybody, we will be recording this. So if you know anybody who can't make it today, or if you'd like to watch it again, you'll have the opportunity to do that. Well, good afternoon. I'm Katrina Knutson. I'm a planner with the Department of Planning and Development in the Planning Division. And I'm joined here today by Leah Niebauer, also with the DPD Planning Division. And thanks for joining us today as we okay. Sorry, okay. So here are the topics that we're going to talk about today. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the comprehensive plan. We're going to talk about the plan amendment work program. I'm going to give an overview of the SSPA process, talk a little bit about the timeline. I'm going to go through the nominator guide and talk about the eligibility map as well. Okay, so before I dive into what SSPA is, I did want to mention that our focus today is long-range comprehensive planning. And, for those of you that are not familiar with the comprehensive plan is the county's primary policy document about the built and natural environment, and it's used to guide the uses of the county's land and natural resources over the next 20 years. It is a guide for decision-making that reflects the community's vision and goals. It is important to note that the comprehensive plan provides recommendation and is not law like the zoning ordinance. However, the recommendations within the comprehensive plan are used by the Board of Supervisors, the Planning Commission, the Board of Zoning Appeals, county staff, and the community as a common basis for decision-making on land use and zoning applications. The comprehensive plan is a living document, and changes to that are called plan amendments. The map before you is the concept for future development, and this map is part of the comprehensive plan and is used to describe at a high level the location and character of future land use. This map provides a general guide and framework for identifying the various types of development that are either existing or are encouraged to grow and develop throughout the county over the long term. We also have more explicit guidance in the area plans, which provides more detailed recommendations on use and density. The concept's policy direction in the area plans, which is illustrated on the map, is for mixed use future growth and development to occur within designated mixed use centers. And I've kind of noted these in the legend in the red brackets. Those are those designated mixed use centers. There are a number of land classifications shown on the map that embody different types of mixed-use centers. The map also shows 3 designated industrial areas and then large institutional land areas. And the areas outside of the mixed-use centers, such as the yellow suburban neighborhood classification, are where minimal change is planned. So just to go to some of those mixed use centers that are called out on the map, you see the Tyson's Urban Center that's shown in black. We have our suburban centers, which are shown in the kind of purple hatch color. We have our community business centers. Those are shown in red. And then we have transit station areas. So those are the areas that are around right now our Metro Rail stations. So I mentioned on a prior slide that changes to the comprehensive plan are called plan amendments. And given the dynamic nature of land development in Fairfax County, we are constantly working on planning studies that are amending the comprehensive plan. The plan amendment work program it's a list of amendments and studies that have been authorized by the board for staff to consider. Items on the work program include countywide policy amendments, small area planning studies, site-specific amendments that are evaluated through the SSPA process, and then there are site-specific amendments that are authorized separately, which in the past we have referred to as out-of-turn plan amendments. Now, getting into the specifics of the SSPA process. This is a biannual countywide cycle for reviewing site-specific proposals called nominations to change the comprehensive plan's land use recommendations. The 2-year county-wide cycle was a change adopted by the board 2 years ago, where previously SSPA oscillated between reviewing nominations in the North or South County every 2 years. So this change established a more frequent countywide evaluation. The prior round began in fall of 2022, and it resulted in submission of 75 nominations. And we believe this is in part due to pent-up demand in certain areas and in part due to broader shifts in the office and residential real estate markets. We don't anticipate the same volume of nominations with this upcoming round, but again, I can't say that for sure, but that's not what we anticipate. So in preparation for the next round, we looked at the goals for the process, lessons learned from the prior round, and we proposed few relatively minor changes. And at recent committee meetings, the Planning Commission and the board indicated that they were generally happy with the process. So we are beginning to advertise the next round this fall by conducting outreach with the development industry, land use groups, and civic organizations throughout the county. That's why we're here today, to let everybody know about the process and some of the minor changes. And we're beginning the next round of SSPA mid-January 2025. We've actually established January 13th as the date. And with the target action on the next work program in May, which will allow, we right now still have some of the nominations are now plan amendments from the last round. But the majority of those active 2022 cycle amendments would be able to conclude before the next work program is adopted. So just to provide a sense of where this project is in terms of the development process, this diagram illustrates the life cycle nature of the land development in Fairfax County. First, starting with the concept phase, which would be the site-specific plan amendment or an SSPA nomination. Then once the nomination is adopted into the work program, the plan amendment is in the planning stage where we look at impacts and plan recommendations. And then the next stage would be the applicant to submit a rezoning application to initiate the zoning entitlement process. The SSPA process consists of a 1-month nomination period in which anyone may submit proposed changes to the comprehensive plan with the property owner's consent. Following the nomination period, the board approves the list of nominations that will be accepted into the process via an action item and can pull items that should not proceed at that time. Items that are accepted then proceed to screening, during which time staff conducts a high-level policy review of the nominations, conducts community meetings to obtain early input, and provides a recommendation on which items should be included on the work program and formally evaluated. The Planning Commission conducts workshops to review the nominations and develops recommendations for additional and priority on the work program, and the board adopts the new work program via an action item. Following the adoption of the work program is the evaluation phase, in which the proposed amendments are analyzed for impact, brought back to the community for further review, and then as part of the public hearing process is presented to the Planning Commission for a recommendation, and then the board for a final decision. So here's our anticipated timeline. We met with most of the Planning Commission board members over the summer to get their thoughts on the next round of the SSPA ahead of the committee meetings we had with them. Today, we're meeting with you to get your input on lessons learned from the prior SSPA and answer any questions that you may have. We discussed the work program and SSPA with the Planning Commission and the board's Land Use Committee on September 26th and October 1st, respectively. And from those meetings, there was agreement on the process parameters that I went over earlier and our and we're beginning to advertise and inform people about the process and conduct, further outreach, like I had mentioned. We anticipate that our eligibility map and nominator guide, I'm going to go over that, but we haven't actually made it live, and a broader website update will be available at the end of, actually probably the beginning of November. So this is all in anticipation of the starting the SSPA in mid-January, that January 13th date, as I said, and screening starting up in earnest in March. So unlike the prior round, the nomination form will be in Plus, not the GIS application we formerly used. Yeah, so let me go right into the nominator guide. So the following slides, I'm going to go into detail regarding the nominator guide, and as also in what is required as part of the submission. So the guide explains which areas of the county are eligible to be nominated during the process and provides a link to the interactive eligibility map. These areas, the areas that are ineligible include land areas that subject to a pending comprehensive plan amendment, or if they were included in any comprehensive plan amendment adopted since February 13th, 2023. That's basically 2 years from the end of this upcoming nomination period, or if they are proposals for changes to a countywide policy or system. So you can't, nominate a parcel as a park, something like that. That is something, that happened in the past APR processes, but that is not part of the our SSPA process now. And also, nominator can't submit multiple proposals on the same land area. So this map shows what the eligibility map will look like. So we're still finalizing the map, and it will be live in the next, like I mentioned, the next few weeks. And this allows users to zoom into ineligible areas. So kind of on this map, you can see the areas in gray. Those would be areas that would be ineligible, but then the rest of the county that's not, that's not colored would be eligible to submit a nomination for. Okay, as I mentioned, we're going to be using Plus this time around. And, Plus it's the planning and land use system. Again, what we refer to as Plus. It's the platform for the county customers use to complete zoning, building, and permitting and other development processes online. And so we'll be using this this year. You will have to create, if you don't already have a Plus account, you will have to create an account in order to submit a nomination. The next few slides are kind of a laundry list of all the elements of the nomination form, some basic information like nominator and property owner information. New this year is a vulnerability index map that will have to be submitted, and I will go into that in a little bit more detail. Existing plan and proposed changes. You have to provide a statement of justification, an illustrative concept plan. There are additional acknowledgments this time around that there may be some additional studies required or needed, potential development timeline, if there is any associated rezonings, engagement. Has there been any engagement with the community or what is anticipated for engagement purposes? Again, basic information, nominator name and contact information, property owner name and property owner contact information. If it's not the same as the nominator. We also need a property owner consent letter. So if the nominator is not the property owner, we will need the permission of the owner in order to submit the nomination saying they're okay with it. Tax map, parcel number, street address, and then also a property map that you can use, that you can create in JADE. This is what JADE looks like. If anybody's not familiar with it, it's an interactive mapping application that's available to the public. Okay, the vulnerability index map. So the nominator will need to submit a snip or a screenshot of the vulnerability index map for the site and the surrounding area. This will help us reach more vulnerable communities during community engagement and also to better provide the services people need to participate in the engagement efforts. The vulnerability index map shows how areas in the county are doing relative to other areas of the county based on occupation, education, language, income, transportation, health insurance, and housing. And again, this information will be used to understand the socioeconomic characteristics in the area near the nomination. This is the vulnerability index map. This is the dashboard. This is the areas are broken down by census tract, and the score is a score from 1 to 5, with 5 representing the most vulnerable, and those areas are shown in dark blue for the most vulnerable. Okay, so the illustrative concept plan, this is another required document. It should show property lines and dimensions, street walkways, parking areas, and site access points, on-site structures and their proposed uses, off-site adjacent properties and structures, natural and environmentally sensitive areas, and arrangement of on-site open space, parks, and recreation areas. And just want to also, I will go to mention this later, but we do also ask that the nominators acknowledge the fact that there may need to be updates to the illustrative concept plan as we go through the process, especially if this is put on the work program. There may be the possibility that we will ask for an update to that illustrative concept plan. So the statement of justification for the nomination needs to address emerging community interest and changes in circumstances, as well as advance objectives of the comprehensive plan, advance the goals of the strategic plan, and align with other board adopted policies. If a nomination was submitted in the prior round but not accepted, the nomination will have to provide a detailed description of the change in circumstances for the property this time around. It should also include an explanation of any known planning issues presented by the nomination. So, for example, redevelopment of existing residential uses, inconsistency with the concept for future development, encroachment into an RPA or a resource protection area or other environmentally sensitive areas. So these are just a few examples of what might be on that list. The nominator should also indicate next steps for the nomination, such as submission of a development application or rezoning. Regarding engagement, the nominator should indicate if any engagement has been done or any anticipated, or if what is the anticipated engagement with the community. The statement of justification will also need to demonstrate that the proposed areas constitute a logical planning area. If the adopted plan recommendation for the nominated site is similar to the surrounding area, a question that's asked would be, why should the nominated site be considered in isolation? Okay, the nominator will have acknowledgement that that additional information or studies may be required, and I had mentioned this. So additional information may include transportation studies if warranted, environmental studies, floodplain, resource protection area, environmental quality corridor delineations, noise studies. Also, we may ask that information to determine consistency with the Affordable Housing Preservation Administration Policy Guide, if those would apply. And then again, like I mentioned, revisions to illustrative concept plans. So after all the nominations are received, they will be prioritized into one of 3 tiers. For nominations that are concurrent with the rezoning applications, concurrency will be evaluated based on initial plan amendment impact, review, prioritization, workload, and readiness of application. As far as the tiering, so tier 1, this is where staff starts working on these first based on board adopted policies. Tier 2, staff works on these resources as resources free up and as nominators begin engaging on associated zoning cases. And then tier 3, these typically are deferred state this is a deferred state until circumstances change or additional information is provided. So there are several kind of reasons for a nomination or a plan amendment to be put on tier 3. And I touched on the concurrency, but as far as prioritization within districts, revisions to the work program should account for priorities within a given district. So if there are any, I will go to questions, thank you for, joining us today, and I'll go ahead and stop sharing, and I can answer any questions that anybody has. Either raise your hand or you can put your questions in the chat. So let me go back here. Okay, looks like Bernie, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Katrina. Appreciate the information.
Sure.
You said there was going to be a number of acknowledgements that the statement of justification will need to provide. The zoning ordinance provides basically some verbiage for that for zoning applications. Will the SSPA documents that staff will be providing also provide that level of detail as to what exact verbiage is needed, or is it just something loose and that we'll have to be creative on how we address it?
Well, we do have instructions in the nominator guide as far as what's needed for the statement of justification. So there will be guidance in there. We should be hopefully publishing that very soon in the next coming weeks.
Okay, thank you. And one last thing, the I forget what you're calling it.
The vulnerability index map.
Thank
Sorry,
you. I was distracted for a slight second when you were talking about that.
Sure, no problem.
Will that map be available in JADE or Planning and Zoning Viewer online?
It's actually its own separate dashboard, and we will have that in the nominators guide. We'll have the link to that in the nominators guide. And basically it's you can either take, a snip of it or a screenshot, whatever works for you. And that would be something then that you can upload as part of your part of the submission.
Okay. And how will that analysis be processed by the county? Is it something that is the degree of it, will the nominator have to consider or provide something else, or is that anticipated, or will county staff, can we expect county staff to weigh in considerations of what the nominator is doing based off of that map index?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, we'll be using this is something new, and we're just wanting to introduce this as part of this process. We haven't ironed out everything. Outreach, and then just in considerations when we're reviewing the nominations, those are things that we will take into consideration.
Okay.
As far as equity issues and that sort of thing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
sure.
it.
Okay, let's see here. I think there's something in the chat, or I have another. Okay, so I believe Ashley.
Hi, can you hear me?
I sure can. Okay,
great. Well, thank you, Katrina. This was great, very informative and helpful. I am an attorney that will be helping a couple of developers, or a developer with a couple of projects in the next cycle. So the nomination guide, is that going to be published online early November?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And for the statement of justification, understood that the source, the criteria that you need to address
Sorry, go ahead.
is guided by the nomination guide, but is there any statute or zoning ordinance provision that provides instruction on? So for example, for a variance, there's a statute that says, here's how, the powers that be will decide if someone gets a variance. They've got to meet these things. Is there any statute or zoning ordinance that's going to be referenced about whether or not you meet the criteria in the statement of justification for, to proceed with the nomination?
There isn't anything as far as in, the zoning ordinance, because I mean, this is for this is just for the comprehensive plan.
Right.
This is attached to that. We don't have, there's not any specific ordinance or that dictates whether or not you meet the requirement. We're going to be, reviewing these on a case by case basis, and looking at your statement of justification. And we'll be, the instructions will be in the nominator guide.
Okay.
One additional thing I would mention, Ashley,
Mhm.
though, the policy plan, which is the county's kind of countywide topic-based section of the comprehensive plan, if you wanted to take a look at one piece that might be useful just in terms of the mechanics of how amendments get authorized and considered, do take a look at the introduction to the preface, as well as the land use chapter, because those will provide you with kind of some guidance on how the process typically is supposed to work. But most of the time, the guidance that you really need to kind of understand whether a land use change is, likely going to be considered is typically located in the area plans. And so I would encourage, as you're preparing your nomination, look at the policy plan, specifically the introduction and the land use chapter, but then a lot of the detail that you'll need to kind of put those nominations together is really the information in the area plans for the specific site or the sites that you're considering.
Okay, thank you. I'm familiar with that for the two areas that I'm going to be working with. So, but thank you.
Sure.
The slides from today, are you going to post that on the website? Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Okay.
And then do you ever, one last question, sorry.
Sure.
Do you ever post samples of, I mean, they're all public record once they've been through the process, but of samples of statements of justifications or anything? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I could actually drop a link to our staff report from the prior round, if you'd like it, and it's on our website today, actually. That will contain all of the nominations, all of the staff analysis that was conducted in the prior round of screening. So that would include the 75, statements of justification, for example, from the nominations that we got in the prior round. So it's all it's all public right now on our website, but I'll drop a link so y'all have a easy way to access it. Sure.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, I will go to Leah. Sorry, Leah, I didn't mean to skip over you.
That's okay. I was trying to compose the question I needed to ask. I haven't gone over the comprehensive plan to look at transportation as it affects these areas that you've identified. Is there a review of transportation and the network that supports these areas at all in the comprehensive plan?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the nominations are concerned, yeah. So typically, the way that this will work is the nominations will come in, and we will determine, okay, is there a concentration of site-specific plan amendments in an area? And then we may consider, okay, are we going to evaluate these individually, or is there enough of a concentration of these that we should consider doing an area plan study of the area? So with the site-specific plan amendments, we evaluate those individually. And often in that case, depending on, there are various thresholds that trigger different levels of transportation analysis. But at the very base level, we our transportation staff evaluates each of the plan amendments. If they're individual plan amendments, they come up with trip generation numbers. They also evaluate bicycle and pedestrian facilities as well, and look at transit. So there is that kind of base level analysis that is done by staff. Now, if a particular site-specific amendment warrants additional study, we often will ask the nominator to do that additional transportation analysis, and which is then a more in-depth analysis. Now, in the case of where staff determines that we have a grouping of of nominations, and we would like to go ahead and we propose that we do an area-wide study. In those instances, it is typically, because of the cost involved, the county that does do those transportation studies. And in this case, and this time around, what we are wanting to do is, if we do determine we're going to do a small area study, then we will be also asking for the funding to do that transportation analysis, because generally we hire a consultant to do that larger study. So there, depending on the scenario, depends on the level of transportation analysis done, but there is always a base level analysis that is done by staff for each of these nominations.
Right. So we're always taking the individual nominations that are coming in. Mm-hmm. But when we talk about a comprehensive plan for the area, do we ever take a step back and bring it up even higher than that and say, here are our transportation problem areas, here are water mm-hmm. areas, here are electrical areas, here are police and fire department areas that we are anticipating that we're going to need more support, less support, better infrastructure bills, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. To me, that is more higher level than this individual pieces. When do we ever do that? Take it up a level and look at the entire infrastructure?
Sure. We do that with the small area plans. That's actually the function, of those small area plans, where we evaluate a larger area. So, for example, we have done that with the Lorton area. We have a small area plan going on there. We're about to start a small area plan for the Springfield area. We've done this for, the Fairfax Center area. We have one ongoing for Centerville. So we have quite a few, small area plans that we are working on, but we still do sometimes evaluate things on a site specific basis. And when we do those small area plans, that's exactly what you do. We look at all the various different infrastructure, and there are instances in the county where we definitely identify, issues, whether it's transportation, whether it's, sometimes we identify, for example, we are doing a land unit case study where we've identified, an issue with sewer service, and we're really having to look at that. So we do actually do that. But then again, we also have, we still have the site specific cases where we make, changes to the comp plan on a site specific level. And we do also look at all of those issues as well.
Okay. The reason I understand you're doing the Springfield is mm-hmm. that Van Dorn is a hot topic mm-hmm. around here, and as you know, I've been involved with this process for, I guess, now 20 years. Mm-hmm. And what my concern is we're seeing a lot of infill controversial development, and the people are starting to get very hostile about any kind of changes that increase the concentration of development and traffic. And that concern, I guess what I'm saying is, to give you feedback, that concern, where we start with, here's the infrastructure look, and we're going to try to accommodate with these changes, and then come in with the individual processes, might help folks go through this, because mm-hmm. I am very concerned about handling those kinds of concerns in the upfront process rather than the back end of the process.
Sure. Okay. And you mentioned Van Dorn. Van Dorn's a little, that's actually going to be a corridor study for Van Dorn. But the Springfield study and the Van Dorn, those two will have transportation, studies, and I know that there will be coordination of those two together. So we're very fortunate to have the ability to do that.
That's great.
Okay,
That's
great.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so I'm gonna really quickly go to, let me see, I don't know if Graham, okay, Graham had answered a bunch of these here. Let me see, if I just wanna make sure, you got Tyler's, great, okay. Okay. Let's see here. Does anybody else have any more questions? I don't know, Leah, did you have another one, or are you still just to have your hand up? I don't know if you have any more. Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. I just wanted to make sure I'm answering everybody's questions. Okay, let's see here. I think that's it, because I think Graham, you answered Tyler's question in the chat. Okay, does anybody else anybody else have any further questions that we can answer for you? Okay, well, if not, we will, like I said, our plan is to, in the next week or so, probably, in the first week of November, first few weeks of November, we will be getting everything up on the SSPA, the 2025 SSPA website, with a link to the eligibility map and a link to the nominator guide. So just keep posted, and we'll send out an announcement about that as well, just so everybody is aware of that. Okay, well, great. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. Appreciate all your questions and comments, and we'll have this presentation up as well as a recording of the meeting. All right, thank you. Take care.